Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that frankly today just isn't really feeling the love. I'm one of your hosts, John Bruford, joined by your other host, Finton Costello. Finton, hello.
So you're not feeling the love? You need a hug? We can. I'll always bring the love, John.
So I was reading this. I was reading it at the same time I was reading another book. I don't want you thinking that I'd read self-help books, but I was reading the self-help book. And
there's nothing wrong with self-help books. I've read them all.
There's a lot wrong with a lot of them, Finton. A lot.
Really?
Yes.
Like what?
What? Like what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily need to be qualified in anything or have experience of anything to write one. And
that's completely true.
And I do have some issues with that. I do think that if you're offering help in a way that looks as though it's like all fucking super above board and you're really brilliant, then you probably should be super above board and really brilliant rather than some fucking asshole with a gimmick and a fancy name.
Like the rich dad, poor dad one's famous for that. So he had this, he's made this whole business out of financial advice. Basically, it's leveraging up on property, I think is his trick, but bankrupt. He blew it all or something, which is quite fun. But it can look, you can't blanket it all as it's all bullshit. Like
I'm not blanketing it all as that because I'm reading one.
All right, which one are you reading?
A psychologist.
Ooh, fancy pants.
Are you familiar with the work of Philippa Perry?
No.
I think she's quite well known. But
I only read get rich quick stuff. That's all I'm interested in.
It's very fair. Very fair. Mostly, I just read, advice on how to be a professional writer.
Oh yeah. Step one: start writing. No. Just journal every day and make it a habit. Make it your job. 1 hour every day. It doesn't matter what you're saying. Just do something.
It's
See,
fucking advice for people that don't need to work.
That is effectively the artist's way distilled into just fucking do it and stop talking about it. And there's a reason it's the starving artist because they've got no choice.
Because they've got no fucking job.
Exactly. Go on in.
Yeah, well, it helped me to learn that I have the...
which of your many problems has been identified? Go on, give it to me.
I have an avoidant attachment type.
An avoidant attachment type. Explain that much.
I think that was the expression that she used. I turned over a page in the book even. Do you want me to go get the book?
I just need to know what avoidant attachment type is.
Well, it's just I'm
Googling it.
You kind of you get attached and then run away.
Oh.
And you're too self-sufficient. And that comes from shit.
Too much of a stud.
It comes from things in your childhood where you basically learn that you can't rely on other people. So, fuck them.
Hyper independent. Sidestepping conflict versus working through issues.
That doesn't sound like me.
Struggles to vocalize feelings and thoughts.
That doesn't sound like me either. But it's not a blanket, Finton.
Okay, yeah.
But what I learned is that is a really, really bad thing for people who are insecure attachment types. And I have said for many years that insecure people generally really fucking hate me. I mean, not just insecure people. Not only insecure people that hate me.
Would that be the hyper independence is triggering for them?
I believe it might be because their attachment type requires validation from that other person, and I can't be asked to give it.
Because it's hyper independent and then emotionally distant or unavailable. So it means you're not going to give that out. But I wouldn't call you emotionally distant or unavailable.
I don't care.
Give a fuck what you think. Back in your box, you stupid Irish prick. Barely remember your name. I'm gonna write your name down every episode. Just fucking.
That happens to me.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Oh, so, what have you been up to? Anything interesting?
Went to Paris. Saw a little bit of the Olympics. Saw the swimming. Took my family down. We
Did you see anything exciting in the swimming? Did you see any?
No, we were on the Sunday, so it was the last day of the swimming. So we saw 2 world records get broken. We saw the Irish guy Whiffen get the bronze medal in the big race.
In the swimming.
And in the swimming, for whatever distance. It was a long distance one. And we saw the Australian lady get silver. So we kind of saw a little bit of cultural representation up on
family boxes.
Yeah, my son was very inspired. He quite enjoyed it, and it was. I was quite excited because it's the first. Because my son does a lot of competitive swimming, so I spent a lot of time sat beside swimming pools on really hard plastic chairs. But these ones had a little bit of padding, and I enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
See, any Parisians listening, this is what you get for the 12 to 14 billion or whatever it is that's been spent on the games.
Well, it'll be where it was. I think it'll all be dismantled anyway. I don't think it stays as a swimming pool.
It'll be leveled. It'll be a car park.
I think it was like a concert arena kind of thing. But yeah, it was really cool. It was nice. Paris was empty, which was because it's August and it's sacrosanct for the French to take August off. So effectively where we were was just Olympic athletes, Olympic tourists kind of thing, and police officers eating food. Every cafe or restaurant we went into, there was at least 10 police officers having their lunch or breakfast or having a coffee. But yeah, it was nice. It was the first time I've been to Olympics. It was nice. It was a nice kind of day out kind of thing. And it was great to make use of the mainland Europe where you can just jump on the train and just pop over or pop down. So it was cool.
You just reminded me of when I was editing the DVD magazine like 20 years ago. This DVD came out, and there was just one thing on the DVD. It was this short film. Have you ever seen C'était un rendezvous?
No.
I like what you did there. It is an 8-minute short film of a Ferrari driving through Paris.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes, flat out. There was that's insane.
It's incredible. I mean, you can only do that at 6 a.m.
But it's real, though, right? They had some racing driver. They had a racing driver do it or something, and just absolutely cane it.
I don't know about that. Hold on. 5:30 on a Sunday morning in August. Key starts in a tunnel of the Paris Périphérique at Port Dauphin. Red lights are ignored. One-way streets are driven up the wrong way. Car drives on the pavement to avoid a rubbish lorry. Yeah, I mean, it's bound to be out there.
Yeah.
Apparently it inspired multiple shots in Mission Impossible Fallout. Fuck knows how that works. But the guy that filmed it's got to be that dude, hasn't it? Yeah, it's not a racing driver. It was Claude Lelouch. The guy who directed it. But he's a big racing dude. I mean, a big racing. But it's just a crazy, crazy film.
Yeah.
Zero deaths. So
they were lucky.
A lot to be said for driving on at 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning in August in Paris.
Yeah, but you got to watch out for like somebody coming home from the night before, just drunk, staggering in front of you. Like it's just so dangerous. But it is a great bit of video.
Yeah, it is. But the world was very different in 1976. 76? Hang on.
There's the famous story of Eddie Irvine when he was driving
76.
for Ferrari F1 team, and he got stopped on the Italian motorway, speeding, obviously in his Ferrari, and the cops come up to the window, rolled it down, and they look in and they're like, Eddie, and then they gave him a whole blue light, fucking all bombing it up the motorway with him. Just do whatever the fuck you want, mate. Go for it.
To be fair, you've just described Eddie Irvine's life. Just do what the fuck
he was smart businessman. He invested well. A lot of businesses and stuff outside of F1. He did big property empire, big pro empire.
But he was that generation where they just started getting the really, really crazy money, because of course he was racing at the same time as Schumacher was racing, and that sort of brought everybody up and up and up.
And then
he
his
raced for Ferrari.
And his favorite quote was, "There's 20 F1 drivers in the world. There's only 2 of us that drive for Ferrari. Only one of us is single," which is just like the James Hunt of his era. It's brilliant.
But that does remind me of one of my very favourite stories.
Go, Bobby, go.
I believe I've told this one on the podcast before, but I think it bears repeating, because it's like Eddie Irvine being stopped for speeding. You know, it's like that whole kind of tying illegal behaviour into your profession thing. And it was when my mate Fred, he stopped me in the street one day and he goes, "John, have you heard any gossip or anything about, anybody about me or my family or anything?" I'm like,
"No, but I'm going to start asking around."
Dude, nobody says gossip to me ever. It just doesn't happen. And he's like, "Oh, all right. Okay." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Well," he said, "my son was out on Christmas Eve. He met up with his young lady friend, and they had a few beers in the church inn in Ludlow. And the church inn backs onto the church, funnily enough. And they decided to continue the evening, and they went and found somewhere private, public yet private, and it being Christmas Eve in St. Lawrence's Church, which is the largest parish church in Europe, and it would have been full. They were treated to the sounds of my friend's son and his lady friend, politely described as going at it.
Wow.
Because their private place was to go up the scaffolding where the church was being repaired and do it up there. And I guess what? And the police turn up, and the torches are shone, and anybody up there, come down, blah blah. And apparently he comes to the edge of the scaffolding, looks down, sees the rozzers, he's doing his trousers up, and apparently he said, "It's all right, lads, I'm a scaffolder." I love that line. I've used it in completely unrelated incidents. It's all right, I'm a scaffolder. If ever there's like a call for a doctor on an aeroplane that I'm on in future, I'm going to be, everybody stand back, I'm a scaffolder.
I can give you 600 words on this. Let's go.
I'll give you 600 words on this, but I'm going to need a few days.
I'm not editing. Funny.
Yeah, we stream of consciousness. So, Finton, I feel like I should tell you that on this episode, we have, it's genuinely a bit of a treat, I think, this episode, because it's fucking fascinating. We are joined by Malcolm Wilkinson, who is the founder of We The Bookie, which is not a French bookmakers. It's bookies operating in Ireland, and with a, from what I know, a completely unique model. They've destroyed the concept of churn, and it's really, really interesting conversation. I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. So Malcolm, they're doing basically share back the profits with losing players every month in proportion to your losses and in proportion to the bookie's profits for the month. And he goes into more. I'll let Malcolm explain in his words better. But I think what I was thinking about afterwards was, because I was like, oh, well, why wouldn't, like, I don't know, Paddy Power just copy this and crush you tomorrow kind of thing. And when he walks through the logic, it's a really great example of the innovator's dilemma. So the innovator's dilemma is a famous book out of America by a guy called Clayton Christensen. So anyway, so books out there. And it's a really interesting examples of where incumbents are making money in one particular area. And then there's a new way, or there's business needs are changing or whatever. But to make that switch, they would end up cannibalizing themselves in the short run, which is very, very difficult to do, particularly when you're publicly listed. So in the book, the famous examples are the switch from laser printers to inkjet printers, which are cheaper, easier for people to use, and these kind of things. Or the other example would be Kodak not switching for, like, Kodak went from like film, kind of missed the digital, and then got completely destroyed by mobile phone cameras and phones. So there's loads of these things where, or like Facebook's a good example, where Facebook was basically a desktop business and they weren't making any money on mobile. And they were losing, basically, it was very close for Facebook at one point in terms of revenues and stuff. And so there's a lot of these situations where there's a switch. I think when you look at the gambling industry as a whole, you've got the crypto guys. So if you're a gray market operator, the crypto guys are effectively eating your lunch right now and will continue to do that for the foreseeable future. Or the likes of, Stake disrupting a Bet365 of this world, that kind of thing is quite interesting. And when you look at his model, it's a really interesting model. It's a lower margin model, but not really, if you kind of integrate it properly. And there's a really interesting thing there where I think it could be very, very disruptive and very difficult for people to copy, particularly if, like he says, you've got these lifetime rev share agreements with affiliates, or you've got this, or you've got that in place. And I think a lot of customers will actually respond really well to this because it's really simple. It feels straightforward. I get it. It doesn't, like, there's always that love-hate relationship with your bookmaker. Like, he's fucking lost again and he's only giving me this, So it completely changes the nature of things.
Well, because the customer's not going to feel like they're getting dicked. Yeah.
And, and the month you don't get the rebate, well, it's because you're a winning customer. So that's all right. And so I think it's super interesting. And Malcolm's lovely, super smart guy. He's got this off the ground. He's up and running. The business is operational, customers coming in the door. He's picked Ireland, which is a tough country to do this, given the sheer monopoly that Paddy Power is in Ireland. And yeah, really, really good shot.
Honestly, if I had any money, I'd invest it.
Yeah, me too.
I really do think it's got legs, and I think it's got legs in every legal sports betting market in the world.
I think so too. I think even in the grey market, it's got legs. I think it's completely.
It's that unique, isn't it?
It's that transportable.
And it has that crucial ingredient, which is not imitable, or not easily imitable.
You'd literally have to build your business model up from the ground with this built in. Otherwise, you're basically operating at a loss. So you've got to. It only works if you start from scratch with this, is the really interesting thing. So somebody could copy it in theory, but I don't think
they'll be
will.
2 years away from doing fucking anything.
Yeah, it takes time.
Sweet. We should mention.
We should.
That we have some delicious sponsors of the podcast.
We do.
Now,
who have we got, John?
I'm glad you asked me that, Finton, and I appreciate it. We've got CRM software specialists Optimove.
Really?
Yes. They are, I think, the number one CRM software specialists in the iGaming industry.
It's a fact.
Fact.
Not even a think. It's a fact.
Yeah, it's a thing. So them, and the link is in the show notes.
I was going to say, if people wanted to see this Optimove software, what would they do, John?
Well, if they follow that link, two things will happen. One, they get to have a look at some stuff and book a demo, and it is genuinely worth booking the demo because it's really, really interesting. And it'll blow your mind, to be honest. The granularity, the precision that it operates in, that's the word, isn't it? It's so frigging precise. It's like where people used to use a cricket bat to do their marketing, this is a scalpel. And
it's scalable, and it's very automatable, and you can do a lot with a very small team, which is brilliant in these tough times.
And the other thing is that clicking that link supports podcasts like ours.
It does.
Optimove have kindly sponsored.
It keeps us in hair gel.
Yes. You know, I seem to remember before we recorded this episode of the podcast, you were wearing a hat because you claimed to be having a bad hair day. How does today rate on that scale?
Better than the other day.
I just can't picture what it would have meant.
What does worse look like, Vincent? Well, John, think bigger. It was very humid, and I go very fluffy in the humidity.
We've all been there, Finton. I'm currently growing my hair out. You might notice there's a bit of a shadow there. Because
that was your headphones.
I made a bit of a schoolboy error the other day.
Oh no!
I was shaving my head in the shower, so shaving my head by touch, wet shaving it, and the razor wasn't that sharp. So there were patches where I had to go over it several times, and in two patches up here, I've just fucking gone through the skin, but I just had blood pissing out of me.
Because
which is quite a funny one to explain to the kids.
Heads bleed.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah. They really do.
It's a gusher.
I've got a little scar here where I got pushed off this little bank when I was a kid, and this part of my head was what connected with the floor first. And it was quite funny because I stood up, turned around, said to the kid that had pushed me, we should talk, just along those lines. And then somebody screamed because the blood was squirting out. It was going miles. It was hilarious. And I had a delayed concussion, so I didn't feel a thing. I was just... And I remember the teacher that cleaned me up, he was shaking when he was trying to clean me up. Oh, God, how I laughed.
We need a bigger bucket.
He must have thought I was mental. I'm just standing there laughing while he's like... But anyway, we also have, as a sponsor, although we're going to be mentioning them less this year.
Okay.
Clarion
Who's our
Gaming.
sponsor? We do have Clarion Gaming.
We do. With, an eye on ice coming up in
Barcelona, January? February? I thought it was January.
I thought it was February. Oh, shit, man. I should look it up.
Gotta furiously Google right now. Nice Barcelona 2025. Bosch, 22nd of Jan. He shoots, he scores. Yep.
It's fair to say that we prepare rigorously for each recording.
Absolutely. So I've just about recovered from IGB Live in Amsterdam. Lots of great business came out of that, actually. It's really interesting. Lots of interesting stuff happening over the next couple of months. And yeah, I'm going to be booking my hotel for Barcelona very, very soon. So.
Sweet.
Yeah,
it does sound good. Who doesn't like Barcelona? I mean, come on.
It's great. I love a bit of tapas. A bit of coffee. It's nice.
I mean, to be fair, you can get tapas all over Spain.
Oh, for sure. But Barcelona is nice. I lived there for like 9 months at one point, and really fell in love with the place.
9 months? Was that the baby was born and you ran?
No, we were. It's a long story. This was definitely pre-baby life. We're like, let's go to Barcelona for a bit and see what that's like. We can just pack up and leave. Brilliant. But I had too much fun, so then we moved to the Isle of Man after that, just as a,
Just
keep
as a
it real.
punishment.
Just to keep it fucking real. The fuck was I thinking?
No light without shadow, Finn.
It's just, stay hard, motherfucker.
I'll teach you to enjoy life.
You like fresh food, do you? Ha! You couldn't even. It was Isle of Man at the time. You couldn't even get a good coffee. It was hilarious.
You
I had to go buy it
now, though.
I think it's improved a lot now, but I had to go buy a proper coffee machine for home because I just couldn't get it decent. You. I know.
Talk about your first world problems.
I know.
I'm sitting here in a house. I don't even own a kettle, Fenton.
You don't drink caffeine.
That's not the point. It's because of poverty.
Yeah, well, that too.
But
we all made our.
I don't drink hot drinks.
Barcelona's great. I'm excited, and it'll be January, so it's kind of good because it'll be a little bit of sunshine. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like in January, but it'll be a bit of sunshine.
It's kind of hard to predict because Barcelona, thanks to the mountains, has a microclimate.
It does. When it rains, it rains.
It should be pretty decent, but Barcelona was in drought for years and years and years, like to the extent where like mature trees were dying, and that's actually really, really extreme. Not anymore, but sometimes you need a bit of rain. No light without shadow, Fenton.
There you go.
In fact, it's been raining here all morning and it's going to rain all day. And I popped to the supermarket before I came to do some work because I've got to pick up the kids later. And I was going through the supermarket. It was just fucking pissing on me. And this old boy just walks past me and he just goes, "See, the weather's back to normal." Yeah. That's it. There's no punchline. It was just...
That's it. Just...
It's not really defeatist. It's just a kind of an acceptance. This is Britain in summer.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit more of an optimist.
I'm generally optimistic. Otherwise, why would I get out of bed? But I do set the bar quite low.
You're a real optimist. Anyway, you keep working through that book. That's the important.
Yeah, it's been interesting so far. I'm also reading this little gem, Exit Stage Left, The Curious Afterlife of Pop Stars.
Ooh.
And it's basic, but what I don't get in this is there's an awful lot of people in there who never stopped being pop stars. So I think he's been a bit loose with his remit there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's not really an afterlife if you're still
a pop star
professionally making music. It's just the spotlight part has moved. So
they're not as famous as they were type thing, is it?
Yeah. But if you're still making a living from it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you've got that kind of like, there's thousands of people screaming outside my hotel room versus national treasure type category where you're bumbling around doing a bit of producing on a bit of kind of corporate gigs and stuff. Maybe it's a different vibe.
To be a judge on a talent show.
Yeah, or like the Olympic opening ceremony type thing.
On the cover though, it's got a quote from The Guardian. Apparently, it's incredibly moving. I haven't gotten to those parts yet.
Okay.
But I did. So years ago, right?
Cool.
I was on Facebook and a friend of mine, lovely guy, used to be a PA and roadie for Susie and the Banshees, right?
Yeah.
And it suddenly struck me. So we used to work together, and in fact, we share a birthday. And I'd been playing this really obscure band that I love called Flesh for Lulu.
Oh yeah.
In the office, and Billy comes in. He goes, "Fuck, are you listening to Flesh for Lulu?" I'm like, "Yeah, do you know him?" He said, "No, I saw him in the pub last night. Rocco's still a fucking twat." I'm like, I was not expecting that. I really was not expecting that. So he's like, yeah, and it came across that there wasn't any love lost there kind of thing. And I looked through his friends, just just to see if there were any Flesh for Lulu members in there this one day. I don't know why. I just thought, I wonder. And there weren't. But I searched for the singer-songwriter, or one of the songwriters and singer. And he was there on Facebook. And I sent him a message because at that point, he was one of only 2 musicians that I would listen to while I was working. I would listen to Bach or Flesh for Lulu. And I just messaged the guy to just say, you know, I appreciate that this doesn't do anything for you, but I just want to say thank you for decades of enjoyment. I just, you know, I love your music. And he came back and we had a really, really lovely chat. And after, you know, a few months later, he messages me out of the blue and he says, "Hey, John, we're doing a gig." He actually said, "We're doing a gig at the O2 in London." This was the one where it was actually at the bowling alley in the O2. But you should come along. And I did. I went along and it turned out to be their last ever gig because he died 2 months later. And it was fucking amazing. It was brilliant. Total bucket list gig for me. There was about 40 people there in a bowling alley. It was fucking
Was there like a kids party going on, like just the next lane over type thing?
Well, do you know, actually, you say that. I've got the ticket here. I've got the ticket stuck to the notice board next to me. And it says, whoever the promoter is, presents Flesh for Lulu at Hollywood Bowl O2 Arena. Bowling not included.
Perfect.
What's not to love, man? What's not to love?
Perfect.
Anyway, meet Malcolm. Right. Listen to the brilliant idea behind We The Bookie.
Yep.
And enjoy the episode. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your company. We are joined by this week's guest, a gentleman that certainly I like to call Malcolm Wilkinson. Malcolm is founder of We The Bookie, a bookie with what certainly sounds to us like a unique business model. And Finton got all excited. It brought out his inner nerd, and he had many, many questions. Now, Malcolm, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Malcolm, 2 things, not entirely related to anything else we're going to talk about. We The Bookie is operating in Ireland. Yeah, the Republic of Ireland.
Yes.
Okay, but you don't seem to have I'm not going to pretend to be able to do an Irish accent. But you don't seem to have an Irish accent.
No, I'm Canadian. I'm from Toronto, but I moved to Ireland for the first time back in the early 2000s when I was in my early 20s with work, and I got an opportunity to go to Dublin, work there for 5 years. I was only supposed to work for a year, but I liked it, so I stayed on for 5. Then moved back, to a few places around the world, and then when I decided to launch We The Bookie, I thought, what better place than Ireland?
Well, before we get into the why on earth Ireland, what are your thoughts on Terry Fox?
The runner? I mean, he's an icon of Canada. I was a little young, but yeah, I mean, what he did was extraordinary.
We're big fans on the podcast, mostly me, to be fair. But I even sent Finton a book about Douglas Coupland did a beautiful large format book about Fox, and it's really and I sent Finton that. It was a gift. I'm like,
yeah,
Finton,
I mean, the more famous runner when I was growing up was Ben Johnson. So a little bit of a different reputation.
Yeah, say the least. Say the least. I mean, they are 2 sides of completely different coins. But it does. Do you know? Actually, the name We The Bookie. I'm not going to charge you any consultancy fees or anything for this. But have you thought how well that would translate to the French market?
Oh, We The Bookie. Yeah, no, or Quebec, you know.
These are like licenses to print money that we're making here, Fenton. This is why people listen. It's free consultancy. from you and a load of bollocks from me. Malcolm, in all seriousness, so Ireland has at least one fairly famous gambling business that's come out of it. I don't know, Finton, what was the name of it again?
Paddy something. I can't remember. Yeah. It's small anyway. Small. Nobody's heard of it.
Are they still Irish?
That's the way.
But so why? So you're gadding about the world doing your thing, and you decide to launch a bookie, and your first thought is, I know, let's do this in Ireland. Why?
Yeah, well, when I first thought of the idea, it was actually before Ontario became legal, and you know, I'd worked and lived for a few years in Ireland, and it had an established, you know, legal betting framework, and on top of that, it was a fairly small country compared to, you know, some other markets. So we're not planning on only it being in Ireland. It's really a proof of concept. So I thought it would be nice, contained, and as you hear more from the model later, it's a bit of a disrupting model. So I wanted to go to an established betting market. And on top of that, I had never worked in the industry before, nor had I started a company before. So I thought I wanted to go to a country where I'd lived before so that I could...
You've got at least one thing under control.
Have a network of support of friends of friends who could help me along the way.
Okay, because obviously for those outside of our, like, obviously Paddy Power, or Flusher as they call themselves these days, is the largest gambling group in the world.
Yeah.
Within Ireland, and for decades at this point, it's basically got a near monopoly on gambling in the country.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's more queries for Paddy Power than there is for the National Lottery type thing, right? So that it's that well entrenched in the economy. And you've got the likes of, say, Boyle Sports up in Dundalk, who've been bashing their head against the wall, trying to battle again. Like, and they've just, you know, great bunch of lads, but it's a hard fight. So it's definitely but I think the benefit of a market like Ireland, like you said, it's 4 or 5 million people, very sophisticated gamblers, very used to sports betting, very used to poker, casino. Like it's a well-established gambling market from that perspective. So, but it's tough. Fair play. Like there is that old Irish joke about the American tourist asking the farmer for directions to Dublin, and the farmer looks at him and goes, "Wouldn't start here." And it does kind of feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I'd have started here, but I like it. So let's go back to the beginning. So you woke up one morning and said, right, I've got an idea. Mm-hmm. What brought about, because I always love the and then we'll get into the model and stuff. I always love the founder story. So what was the lightning bolt?
The modern parlance is origin story.
Why? What did I call it?
Founder story.
Founder story. Origin
You're
story. Thinking
founder's journey and all of that. That's
I was thinking hero's journey, and I mixed it up a bit. I was thinking hero's journey. You got to
think superheroes. You got to think origin story.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you got bit by a spider in Brooklyn, and then what happened?
Yeah. So my Spider-Man, Batman moment was, well, I guess what maybe predated that by about a decade. I was living in Toronto in my 20s, and a friend of mine who actually got me hooked on betting in the first place. He used to bet on NFL. Mm-hmm. So I just used to enjoy going along on a Sunday afternoon, watching it in a bar. And so I started just following along with his bets. And after a while, kind of got disagreed with what he was doing and got his bookie's number. But he's an interesting guy, and a bit of an addictive personality. And he started losing a bit too much. And I said to him one day, you know, I don't want to be your bookie. You don't want to be my bookie. But what if we were each other's bookies, and we had ground rules of betting roughly the same amounts, and then we're basically just, you know, one of us is going to be up or down, but you know.
Okay.
So we did that for a couple of years. We had a good system in place, and I found two things. One, obviously, I was losing a lot less, or even winning. And the second thing is that I now had sort of double the interest. So I was interested not only in my bets, but his bets. So I guess once I go in to explain We The Bookie's model, you'll understand how this experience with my friend led me to essentially our USP.
Well, let's go into the USP then. We can't just tease it like that.
Sure. So the USP is that we operate very much like a standard online sportsbook. We try to align our odds with the market. We don't want to be better or worse. We want to be median. And at the end of each month, we give half of the accumulated GGR, gross gaming revenue, back to our losing customers in direct proportion to their loss that month. So just to give an example of how that works, let's say in a month we were up 2,000. But let's say the winners were up 1,000.
Yep.
That means the losers were down 3,000.
Yep.
So by giving half of 2,000 back, that's 1,000 being given back. And if you divide that by the sum of the losers, the 3,000, that's 33%, which means that month, each losing customer gets 33% of their losses back that month. So the percent, it's called the we share model, and the percent will change depending on the winner-loser split. So the fewer winners, the higher that percent, and the closer that percent will be to 50%.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I've got it.
Yeah.
So typically the profit margin for a bookmaker would be 10%, give or take, right? So if you're giving away 50% of the GGR, not even the NGR, that's your margins must be razor thin.
Yeah, although funnily enough, I mean it's a relatively small sample size, but in the 12 months or so that we've been operating, taking in between 5 and 50,000 in stake per month, we've had quite a few months of over 20% GGR. Now, I don't know whether that's the fact that we appeal more to casual punters, and also the way our customers on the first day of every month when they get their WeShare credited to their account, we just see a sea of accumulator bets. It's like
they're just straight back in,
found money, all that. I don't know, could just be small sample size and we're getting a bit lucky, but we're still doing our long-term projections on 8% GGR. We're trying to be conservative. And with that, if you get sufficient volume, you're still a profitable business. So it's amazing what you can save by not depending on the affiliate industry too strongly. I know you're it's
those scum.
No. So yeah, we can get more into the nuts and bolts of that perhaps later, but it can certainly be profitable. It's just not as profitable.
Yeah, for sure.
But profitable.
But then I suppose like if you're like any bookie's got some sort of loyalty scheme or rebates for VIPs or the free bets and so you've just done away with so there's no affiliates, free bet offers, boosted pricing, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean because we're so early days, we really have to focus a lot on customer acquisition. So we offer a €20 free bet on registration. We do some promos where if there's a special event going on, we might offer an extra free bet on that. So pretty mild customer acquisition things. But for our existing customers, we really don't do very much in the way of free bets and boosts.
Okay.
Because your value proposition is elsewhere and it's far, far simpler.
Exactly.
So, I mean, just thinking about this in terms of marketing, I mean, you've got like one perfect marketing message.
Yeah.
And word of mouth is going to be your very best friend. I mean, you're saving money in an awful lot of ways with fewer offers, less reliance on an affiliate model, less need for marketing spend, probably much better organic word of mouth.
I mean, unfortunately, we haven't had a marketing budget yet to prove that side of the equation. But just sort of as a thought experiment, if you had a advertisement that had 1,000 eyeballs from a conventional sports book, and maybe you converted 5 people from that, but they're not really proposing anything that's of true value to the customer. Whereas if we're presenting our USP in the right way, you'd think you'd get at least 10 signups out of the 1,000 eyeballs instead of 5. So you've already cut your marketing costs in half. I mean, that's just a thought experiment. It could be better or worse than that, but you'd expect it to be better. So the question is, how much better?
Yeah, because I could imagine this as a TikTok, right? The guy's sitting there going, here's how I get up to 50% of my losses back every month betting.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. Here's my money back in my account.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I can see it in a 15-second TikTok. Yeah. With some aspiration. Like, so from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense of the audience you're trying to address. Having done gambling marketing for so long, my brain automatically goes to bonus abuse and like people trying to take advantage of this, because obviously the rebates significantly change the odds. Being like, so if you're mid-market in your pricing, if there's a potential that I could get a rebate on my losses, that changes the odds calculation and potentially, and again, my ignorance, I'm definitely not a trader. Potential ARB opportunities could arise. Obviously, there's the variance of winners, and you're not sure the percentage. But particularly when you're small, you're vulnerable. Yeah. How do you manage that? Because that must be that's what would be keeping me awake at night. Would be just getting turned over.
In the early days, we're keeping our maximum liability per event, within our means. Okay. But if you consider like the future state, one aspect of our model is that because only the losers get a we share, it depends on the type of sharp. If it's a sharp who consistently wins every month due to high volume and just very sharp play, our model just isn't that attractive to them. I mean, it's still going to be attractive, but just not that attractive. So yeah, you might get the type of sharp who, say, bets on big odds golf, and they might have only 2 or 3 winning months in a year, but they make all their money from that. So yeah, they'd love our model, and we have to manage them accordingly. But I think some of the ways you can quote game the system are actually not really negatives. For instance, let's say you're a customer who is even on the account on the last day of the month on their account. And we show what the we share percent is on a daily basis. It doesn't lock in till the end of the month, but it's on our site, the we share tracker. Today it's 42%. So let's say at the end of the month, let's say it's 40%, relatively high. Because they're relatively even on their account, it actually makes sense for them to make, say, whatever they can afford, maybe €1,000 bet on an even odds. If they win the bet, happy days, they're up $1,000. If they lose the bet, they're really only down 600 because they're going to be getting 400 back from the we share, unless it goes crazy that day and we have a lot of winners. So, but that's not a problem for We The Bookie. That's more action. And it's not really promoting problem gambling. It's a smart bet. It's positive EV. So we don't mind that. And in fact, you get another customer who maybe is down, so they're not going to bet. And in fact, it's a way to promote responsible gambling. If you're a customer who, say, loses 1,000 in the first 2 weeks of the month, then, and we've seen this behavior, you may just shut it down and wait for your we share to come in, because you're going to be getting maybe a couple hundred, and then you start again with that. So it it softens and reduces that chasing bet.
Yeah. Well, what about behavior. It actually might be the benefit of not having affiliates. There's the likes of, say, Odds Monkey and these kind of communities where they're like actively arbitraging free bets, and so it's not the big golf bettor coming in. It's the person working from their bedroom trying to make 500 quid in a month type thing. It feels like with the rebate, it does open up avenues there as well.
Yeah, it could. We'll have to be careful with that type of behavior, like any bookie would have to be.
Okay. All right. So up to 50% of GGR gets handed back to customers, to losing customers in a month. It's paid out like a payday kind of thing, which is brilliant. I love that. Yeah. It's like a second payday, right? That's good. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. Still early days. Okay, so you decided to launch in Ireland. You've got the £1,000 gorilla in the corner called Paddy Power, but it's like, fuck that. We're just going to crack on, do our thing. Everyone can have a second account. What does it take to get a sportsbook live these days? Like, is it custom code? Is it something off the shelf? What does the team look like? How to talk us through the kind of the practicalities of this?
Yeah, it's been the biggest challenge, to be honest, was finding a suitable platform provider.
Sure.
So we had very limited funding. I raised 150,000 seed capital. We've raised another 100 since then. So it's definitely not large amounts. Mm-hmm. And so you have to go, third party for as much as possible. But when you're modestly funded in your startup, a lot of the platform providers just won't even take you on.
Yeah.
Like we didn't really need a ton of bells and whistles. We just wanted it to look and feel as much like a normal experience for our customers as possible. And we just layer on the USP on top of that. So definitely the platform, and we did have a swing and a miss on our first platform. We were actually live January of last year until June, but the platform just wasn't fit for purpose. It was a fairly new platform provider, and to be honest, I think they're about to go out of business. But
there's a lot of listeners going, name names. We'll look it up in the Wayback Machine. It's fine.
Yeah. But now I'm with Every Matrix, and
okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, we're big fans. Can I? Yeah. I know you started with a volley of stuff there, Finton, but can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, you're allowed. Permission granted.
Well, no, you touched on the RG side of things, and one of the markers of harm is not making withdrawals. Now, this model surely makes it even less likely that people are going to make withdrawals, or does it? I mean, do you have any data to compare this to in terms of withdrawals? But this is a double-parted question. You said, Malcolm, that or actually no, Finton, you might have said, anybody can have a second account. Well, is it possible that what you might sort of end up with in the fullness of time is being everybody's second account, but they use your account for their riskier bets?
Yeah.
And so you actually wind up with...
Oh, no.
but you actually wind up with a player profile that you cannot model. Finton, you'd end up with a player profile that you can't model RG on. You can't say this is a risky player, this is a non-risky player, because you wouldn't have their typical play habits at all.
I think John, going back to your first point about customers not withdrawing. No, our customers definitely withdraw. That they don't usually withdraw their WeShare.
Do you think that's because you're in a largely Catholic country?
It's an ecumenical manner.
I have to tell my Catholic girlfriend you said that. She always gives out to me for being an evil prod.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else there for a second. I also thought that.
Yeah. So no, I think the withdrawal. I don't see how our model would differ in people's willingness to withdraw. I think if you've won a big bet, you would withdraw just as easily on our site as any site. I think it just on the RG side, it just softens and tampers the depositing too much in an irresponsible way.
Well, okay, so to put a positive spin on it, one way to look at it, John, would be, okay, so I've got my 100 euro gambling budget. I've gambled my 100 euros this month. On the first of the month, I get 40 euros back or 20 euros back, whatever it is. But effectively, it's sunk money. And I gamble that on some accumulators and I have a bit of fun with that because it's all still part of my original 100. So I'm gambling with 120 like it's 100. And I'm just using made up numbers. And I'm not redepositing. So you could argue it's extending the utility of the money. The gambler is there to gamble and have some fun. They're not actually there to win, by and large. And this extends that. It gives them a big greater ability to place more bets and have more fun while costing them less.
And not only that, but just to go back to the example of the customer who did lose, let's say 1,000 in the first couple of weeks. Well, then in the third week of the month, say the British Open is on. And what we do is we publish who our biggest liability golfers are. So who has the most action on them. Unfortunately, Xander was one of those. So someone who's either taken a pause from betting or just doesn't bet on golf would look at that and the British Open is on or the Open is on, and they can now legitimately cheer for and against.
I love
right?
it. Yeah.
And definitely we want to build out the tech in the future so that whenever we have a large unbalanced position on anything important like the Premiership, we want to publish that so that our customers can cheer along even if they don't have a bet on it.
So they can rail that's really smart.
Yeah.
That's so much fun.
We call that the Bookie's View feature. Yeah.
That's really
it's another great little marketing tool and point of difference.
Yeah.
But it's one you really have to feel. It's hard to explain, but you really have to feel. But once they get into it, they really get into it.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think it would be very black and white. I think some customers would just not give it. They just only care about their own bets.
Yeah.
But I think other customers, all they need is a direction. It's like
it's
this
a bit
direction
like,
or that direction.
Well, it's a bit like when you buy some shares and then all of a sudden every day you're checking the share price.
Yeah.
And it does feel like your rebate number percentage, it does feel like every day I just have a quick look at the share price, just see how it's tracking.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That completely, and that kind of like, if you're talking to the Silicon Valley tech bros, that they always talk about the toothbrush effect. So a product or a whatever that you use twice a day, like a toothbrush. So it's something like this. It's like, okay, I'm not saying I'm betting twice a day, but I'm logging in and having a quick look twice a day.
Yeah.
And that's a really compelling, there's a stickiness to that that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. Go on, John.
Are there, given the unusual financial aspect of this and the longer life that money has when it's in your sort of environment, are there certain types of bet that are more popular?
Well, I suppose for the smart punter, you'd want to do riskier bets, because, or at least have a riskier profile. Like one thing we will have to guard against is people having either multiple accounts or colluding with other friends and doing a system where one bet's one side of and one bet's another side, so that one of them's going to be up big and the other's down big. That's fine. So that we'd have to be careful of. But I think it would be fairly obvious if you're seeing a pattern like that with the same people.
The liabilities and it's pretty easy. It's bonus abuse detection.
And I think it'd be fairly easy to detect because you'd see the people constantly doing the opposite sides of each other. Yeah.
and then to expand it out, you'd need more to hide it. You'd need more people, and it gets very complicated very quickly. Yeah. And then one person lets it down, and the whole thing collapses.
Yeah,
because somebody forgot to log in and place their bet or something like that.
Exactly.
There's definitely people who will be motivated enough to try and do that. And it's going to affect you more when you're smaller than when you're bigger, in a way. But it's definitely, at this point, my guess is you've got a fairly good handle on your user base. And you probably know most of them by username, and it's kind of like, oh, he's back again today. Let's see what he's going to do. Yeah. Okay, so there's a really interesting. Okay, so I'm just still figuring out that because the other change in behavior would be you wouldn't do a season-long bet. That wouldn't make sense because it's paid out monthly. So actually, the other change in behavior would be the bet needs to settle within the calendar month. I'm guessing would be the
although if you do a season-long bet, it's based on the settlement month. So if at the end of the season it settles, you will get the credit that month. You always get the credit at some point.
Oh yeah, you'll get the credit, but I'm just thinking in terms of, I suppose it actually doesn't make a difference.
The only thing is that you definitely can't gain. You can't strategize on what the we share percent is. So, for instance, as I said, the later in the month, the more you know about what the we share is probably going to be. Obviously, that's.
But then it's the last day of the month. It's pretty much locked in at 42%.
Yeah.
But you got to find bets that settle today, which is doable. But then, if everybody's doing that, then that 42% could be 30%. So in a way, it kind of self-regulates, I think. A little bit.
Yeah, I guess mean reverting. It would get.
That's the word. There we go. And so you weren't okay. So you were so just to understand. So you're running a sports book. You haven't worked in the gambling industry before this?
No.
What's been the biggest surprise? Like, oh shit, is that how they do it? Well, what's been the biggest? Oh, I thought they'd be smarter than this. Or what's been the biggest surprise for you, kind of coming in as a gambler to run a gambling company? Once you start realizing behind the curtain what actually happens.
Behind the curtain, monthly minimums.
Oh, okay.
They were the biggest rough surprise. I'll be honest. I don't know. I guess the stickiness of horse racing in Ireland. I as a Canadian, I never really got that into the horse racing, and we actually aren't able to provide horse racing right now because every matrix haven't got it up and running yet. But
got it.
I think they will soon, especially with the FSB merger. But it's just really tough to even acquire customers when you don't have horse racing, and it also obviously affects your revenue. So horse racing, how big it is over here. Other than that, I guess one random thing. I don't know. Again, maybe it's a small sample size situation, but the popularity of both teams to score, I didn't realize that was such in a football game. I don't know. We seem to get many customers always kind of going for that. I don't know.
I know affiliates who've made entire businesses out of ranking for BTTS or both teams to score, or just doing. Oh, John's had his cream delivery.
Lads, what did I miss?
What did you just have delivered? Cream? What is it?
It says marmalade on the jar.
Go on. But it's actually heroin.
It's a sourdough starter.
Oh.
So I live in a town where there's lots of creative people. And there's a lady who lives it's kind of the next street. It's not really a street, but she lives down and she's lovely. And her dog met mine and she was a bit worried because her dog has a go at other dogs. My dog's quite big. And she was like, oh, I'm worried. Anyway, I just said, just let your dog come and say hello. And her dog came over and barged right into him and gave him a load of grief. And he just looked at her dog like she was joking. And they've been friends ever since. weirdly enough, I saw their dog the other week, and somebody was shooting quite close by. Somebody must have been shooting clay or something, but they were shooting loads. And I saw their dog in the street on her own, and she saw me and came straight over. And I had the dog with me, and I knew it was their dog, Jaffa, and she's an absolute sweetheart. And I managed to figure out how to get their dog, not to their house because they were away, but their dog was staying with somebody who lived really close to the shooting, so the dog got freaked. Anyway, so I bump into Helena in the street, and I said, Helena, you wouldn't be the kind of person that does their own sourdough, would you? And she's like, well, it's funny you should ask. And Helena's an author, and she wrote. I've for a long, long time I've had this bizarre idea that you could do biographies of stuff. Like there's this publishing company that I'm absolutely fascinated by, and I've collected their books for decades because they're batshit. They're just fucking batshit. And I thought you could do a biography of this publishing company. I mean, you could if even they knew what they'd done in the past, but they don't. But anyway, can't digress slightly. But she did a book called Lev's Violin, and she went to a concert local to here. And this dude was playing this violin, and apparently it just had this incredible, warm, beautiful sound. And so she did a biography of this dude's violin.
That's cool.
And she's
I love biographies of stuff. Like some of my favorite ones. I read a biography about the diamond industry, which was really interesting. Mm. There's a great one called The Box, and it's about shipping containers and the impact that shipping containers have had on basically the guy who invented them and like recent history kind of thing. Shipping containers, refrigerated shipping containers, that standardization process and how it literally just changed the world. Really interesting stuff.
That does sound good.
Yeah.
I read a great article about shipping containers and how the sort of business model and the way that they are moved or not moved and the penalties that come with them are a big part of what's completely fucked the price of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, because of the cost of oil and stuff. Yeah, it's a crazy business. Anyway, back to gambling.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, but I was also going to ask if you had a much lower churn.
Oh, that's sort of our gold star metric. Our churn is, we have some people who do self-exclude, so we lose them, of course. We have some, but it's essentially perfect retention because, once you start getting your WeShares into your account, why would you go to someone else?
So, okay, here's the investor question then will be, what's to stop Paddy Power copying this tomorrow and rolling it out and putting you out of business or whoever?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to stop a new company coming in and doing this, but I think for the incumbents, I think they'd have a really hard time switching into this model because they weren't designed that way. For instance, for all of the ongoing affiliate rev shares, if you're paying,
that's a good point.
You know what I mean? If you're paying 30 to 50% to and then you're getting half back, you're left with nothing. So I just don't think that their whole cost structure is set up around, the conventional model. And if they all of a sudden snap their fingers and start giving 50% back, they would actually be losing money because they're not set up for that. So in my
fucking brilliant.
in my optimistic world, we the Bookie's model just takes over, and the Paddy Powers and Bet365 of the world, they all go out of business, and then others will copy us, but we're just going to be the next, like Uber taking over the taxi industry. I don't know. But then you also have your Lyft, so who cares? Yeah,
you need the right. What was I'm watching the NSYNC documentary on Netflix. The guy, whatever the guy name behind it, and he delivered. So he had. I could make you move. So it was basically he created the second boy band. So basically he was creating the Pepsi to the Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
So that he already had it. Okay, sorry, that was complete. All right. So because you're new, you're not publicly listed, you don't have a quarterly earnings call, your model, your business
Keep
model.
Keep it that way.
Yeah, it's not. It changes everything. You're not publicly listed. Your business model is based on a different pricing structure, or margin structure, which gives you flexibility. All right. So what keeps you awake at night? What's the big worry?
At the moment, it's the monthly minimums combined with trying to make the leap from friends and family round to institutional or angel investment. So I have had some preliminary discussions with institutional money, and what I'm hearing a lot is you're just too small, or you just, come back to us when you have some traction numbers. That's fine, but it's even with our USP, when you've got no marketing budget and you're spending time, troubleshooting the platform there, we're still having some growing pains with the platform rollout. It's just tough. And, especially when you're this small, I think over time we'll, start to have more organic growth. But in the very early stages, organic growth is really tough. And, I think we're also suffering from the too good to be true phenomenon. When it is a very customer friendly model, but a lot of people are like, well, I haven't heard of you, and this just sounds like a scam. I get that a lot. So, but I think that problem goes away over time, but it just does. It exists today.
That happens to me all the time when I'm using dating sites.
He's got a 12-pack.
6 on the front, 6 on the back. What's the problem?
But look, it's too good to be true. It's like I know when I saw the website, I'm like, really? And I definitely read the FAQ and the T's and C's, and I'm like, huh, is that so I think it feels like it's a social proof thing. It feels like it's and it as stupid as somebody standing there with a novelty check type thing.
Yeah.
There was there used to be a casino in the UK that used to do that, where they would pay you a little bit more on your cash out if you posted a picture of your novelty check with your novelty check on Facebook. But I think your model, things like Reddit, just feels like the perfect.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that, and I need to get on that.
In Ireland, obviously, there's boards and there is a few small communities. There's they contacted us. There's a gambling conference taking place in Dublin beside the RDS. I think in November. And there's going to be a lot of basically it's aimed at the Irish. It's a mixture of industry and punters. So it's a bit like Bookie Bash in America.
Huh.
Yeah.
But it's the Irish Bet Bash. That's it. But it's the Irish version of that, and it does feel like you just need that kind of grassroots punters. And it's kind of like, oh, my mate Dave's a serious bettor. He says these guys are legit, and then I go use it. It feels like that kind of. So if you've got to find the kind of core community first,
yep,
and then spread from there.
Yeah, and you made an earlier point about TikTok influencers, and we haven't branched into that yet. But even with almost no marketing budget, I'm on the hunt for a small audience, but mostly Irish audience, TikTok personality who does already bet online. And then what you can do is just give them the free €100 into their account, let them play with it, let them experience that we share, and then let them just talk about it totally organically. So
there's a couple of ways to do this. So, I worked for PokerStars for a while. So PokerStars had a very, very loyal user base. It was amazing. And one of the tricks was just ask the customers, hey, I'm trying to feel like I had a situation where I'm sure statute of limitations coming in. I think PokerStars wasn't mentioned on the Wikipedia page for poker. and Mr. Scheinberg wanted that fixed. And you can't just log on to that page and just make a change. But then it turns out there was a user who was like a very serious wiki mod, and I got him to back up the change, and we got it sorted. It'd be, I reckon, asking your users of, hey, anybody know somebody? Because Ireland, beauty of Ireland is it's a small country.
Yep.
And everybody knows everybody, and it'll be very easy to do that. And in a way, it's in the user's best interests, because the more punters on the platform, the more average the returns are, which means you're going to get closer to the 50% every month.
Closer to the median, but yeah.
Yeah, but it should be closer to a 50% payout in theory. All things being equal. Which is actually in their best. So there's probably some really interesting opportunities there. Just asking the lads, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that your existing customers, the ones who are getting their share every month, like that is your social audience in a way. And what can you do to encourage them to talk about it online? The challenge is, and it's a bit easier for sports betting. But the challenge is people don't like talking about gambling online in a lot of ways, particularly publicly. But there must be something there.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing, once we do get a marketing budget, I know I come off as, not having to depend on affiliates, but at the same time, I think that our model would actually work. It obviously does not work for the rev share affiliate model, but the CPA model, I actually think that works well for us, as long as the customers, get a certain, maybe have experienced a we share, and that triggers the CPA, because our retention is so good that, we can afford the CPA model, and the CPA model does actually work for us compared to perhaps someone else.
And I know I was being a bit sarcastic. Like there's definitely, it's about finding the right affiliate. Not every affiliate's going to suit this. Not every affiliate's going to be interested, but it's finding the right affiliate, particularly ones with communities and stuff, are probably where I'd start with. And then you can also do stuff like how you set up the deal to make it win-win. So say, look, we will, the CPA number is X, but we will divide that up into this trigger, this trigger, and this trigger.
Yeah.
These are our retention numbers. This is why we're confident, but we need to see that you're not bringing in low value, highly incentivized. It's got to come in, place a couple of bets, and bugger off again, which is the risk with CPA models.
Yeah.
You can also cap it of like, hey, we'll pay for 50 customers, see what the numbers look like.
Yeah.
And then so there's lots of ways you can structure this.
Yeah.
It's like any business deal, right? So there's definitely ways you can make it work. And look, the affiliate's going to have the same questions. It's like, how the fuck do I know you're still in business in 6 months? Can you actually afford us? Show us your bank balance. So there's counterparty
it's like
risk.
Signing up for a bookie.
It's worse. No, it's usually just done on Skype. It's hilarious. But there is that kind of, like, there is, you've been around for a while now. This isn't brand new. You've got some numbers. There's stuff happening. People are getting paid. It all makes sense. And for the affiliate, like, okay, if I'm an Irish sportsbook affiliate, everybody's got a Paddy Power account. So I'm not making any money from Paddy Power right now. Right. Maybe early days I banged in a few customers and I'm getting something, but they've also, like, there's been a lot of affiliates turned off and stuff like that as well. So Skybet did a big famous one before they merged with PokerStars. So everyone's probably got a Boyle Sports account as their second account. Matchbook, not really a thing. So there's a few of the UK book, you know what I mean? So there's a new brand always goes down really well because nobody's got an account and it's something new to promote, and they'll definitely generate commission. So there's the benefit there for that as well, for them, for that as well, of like, oh shit, it's a new brand. It's an Irish brand. We can maybe do some stuff around that. But yeah, it's super interesting. I really like it. It's really fun.
Thanks. Thank you.
It's really fun. So, okay, once you've conquered Ireland and brought Paddy Power to his knees, my words, not yours. Where's next?
The natural next step is the UK. I know
because I like pain.
I can honestly say.
Sorry.
I can honestly say that if you come to the UK, I will have my one and only account with you. Because I've had an account for years. The bookie that I had it with got taken over. It's been shit ever since, and I am a casual bettor. But I'd totally put my business with you because, well, can I just go back just a little bit? Something that you said really made me chuckle inwardly, which was investors looking at you and going, yeah, sorry, you're just too small. And you're just thinking, well, that's why I'm talking to a fucking investor.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be too like, I don't want to show my frustrations at the moment, but it is a bit frustrating. And also I see what else they're investing in. I mean, God, betting exchanges. I love the betting exchange model. I mean, I think I was one of Betfair's first customers. I think I came across them when I was in 98, 99 in Leeds on exchange. Now, I've looked up at the Wikipedia. They say they didn't exist till 2000, but I'm sure. Anyway.
There was the one before, there was Betfair Exchange. There was what became Sky Bet, but then there was the bit in the middle where they took over Sky. I can't remember the name. I think it was actually called Flutter. So there was a bit where they were. So there was an earlier bit. So there was Betfair as we know it. Betfair Exchange as we know it was the established name. But there was a bit before that where it was a bit messy.
Maybe that's part of the messy part.
So you were probably, if you were thinking, I think it was earlier. It was probably that bit where it was all up in the air.
Yeah, but I mean, so I'm a very big fan of that model. I think it's a good model. I don't mind the model as a bookie because people usually need a conventional account too, but it has the liquidity problem. And so you're getting all these exchanges, and I'm sure they appeal to the investor mentality and stocks and exchanges, but can all these new exchanges possibly? I don't.
We've had the Profit guys on here ages ago when they were launching in New Jersey, and now they're pivoting into social DFS nationwide kind of thing, which makes way more sense.
They basically said we're going to stop doing this in the place that we're allowed to, and we're going to go and do something completely different
everywhere else. And and again, that I think it's your point, right? You're an investor, rational pricing. I buy cheap, I sell high. Why isn't everybody doing this for sports betting? And it's a bit like DraftKings doing their deduction on your winnings for taxes, or what proposed. I don't know if they will actually choose or not. And it's that, like, in a very rational world, I'm sure this is all fine, but we're dealing with punters who are like,
they can be emotional,
a little bit emotional, risk takers, and I think there's a point where odds aren't the only thing. Convenience, service, these kind of things actually are way more important. Like, I've always talked about this, but if you survey people about, like, oh, why did you buy that product, right? They'll always try and rationalize their decision-making process. And it'll never be because they saw George Clooney drinking that coffee. Yep. It's because, it's cheaper per cup than buying beans or something like that, right? It'll be some sort of logical, trying to make themselves seem smart. Yeah. So, okay. But then the amount of idiots running around with PowerPoints raising a ton of cash in America is staggering.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some shit shows of, like, lads, really? You've raised how much so far? And you've got what now?
Yeah. And I think my problem is that I'm a first-time founder. The team is basically me. I have some other people, but I'm basically a solo founder, and I've never worked in the industry before. So I think that I just have to prove so much more than.
Are you talking to people who invest in the industry or from the industry, or are you talking to people outside the industry?
I'm trying to focus on people who invest in the industry, because if you try to go outside the industry, you just have so many other roadblocks. ESG and this and that. So I'm open to outside the industry also, but I think my most likely play would be within the industry.
Yeah. And then rolling, obviously I laughed, but rolling into the UK makes perfect sense because you basically don't have to change the product. It's just a currency change and some tech implementation for source of funds. And
there's also a lot of media overlap between Ireland and the UK. So
we don't like to admit it, but it's basically the same country.
Yeah. Once we do have a marketing budget, it would be easier to do that in the combined ecosystem.
And you're following the Paddy Power playbook: conquer Ireland first, then conquer the UK. So this is completely, this is a well trodden path.
It's easy, I think. With what Finton's saying.
I also like, in terms of going stateside, I'm not that excited about the actual states yet, but I'm from Ontario, so I think Ontario would be a nice test market over there. It's a large.
Do the rest of Canada first, then do Ontario.
Maybe.
Like, save yourself a load of bullshit.
Just to mess with their heads.
So we've made a little bit of fun of exchanges, kind of pivoting to others. Not making fun, but like, it's the classic thing. If you start with an exchange and you're like, oh shit, let's just launch a sports book, or let's do something else. The other kind of well-trodden path is everything ends up at casino. So you've got your sports book, things are going well. And I've seen this with other things as well. At some point, somebody's going to convince you to add a slot machine.
Yeah.
And then you're going to make more money from that slot machine than the rest of your business combined. And then before you know it, you're on the slippery slope and you're a casino. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've made a great business from casino. How does your model work for casino?
It's kind of a moving target. Our inherent sort of brand, I don't know, value system or whatever is more sportsbook oriented. And again, we're not totally kumbaya or anything like that, but we do like the fact that our model, promotes responsible gambling and all that stuff. So I think to bring in slots would go against that brand value a little bit. Having said that, our USP is very good for customer acquisition and retention. So, casinos often like that, using a sports book to acquire customers. So we get that. And I think a lot of it will depend on the background of the ultimate investor. And it's a discussion, so we don't have a casino at the moment, but that's not to say we never will. It'll just be a kind of a decision based on what we want our brand to be. And I'm not explaining that very well, but
I understand.
We will see.
We will see. Okay, so it's not a hard no. No, it's a maybe, but not yet.
Yeah,
but I don't. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something here, right? But we're talking about relatively slim margins in sportsbook. Like some casino games, like they're relying on volume, really significant volume, because the house edge on roulette is 1 and a bit % or whatever, right? We're not talking about it. It's just it's that statistical probability and the high volume of money that's coming through that they get to keep X amount. And I'd love to see mathematically how this could be applied to casino. I can sort of see it with slots, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you two are both
you could probably do it by product. You probably do it by product or something with the way to do it. You break it down a little bit, I think, possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Malcolm.
I think if you applied the exact same model to the casino side, I actually think the we share % would be higher because you'd have fewer winners winning less and more losers.
Yeah. But then it depends on your mix of games. Like if it's all table games versus slots, and the mix of the two products. But then it's the same as straight on bets versus accumulators, I suppose.
Yeah.
But brilliant. You could do it where there's something, say you did table games and say you did the returns part based on utilizing the side bets where the return is much greater anyway. the return to better, but also the margin is way better, then there's potential for that, and then you're encouraging the side bet aspect. So there's definitely ways to make it work. You two are better than me at this. But I need to wrap up there because I need the toilet. Malcolm, have you been catching up with Cobra Kai?
I saw part of the first season. Yeah.
Fucking hell. Just
I think we're gonna have to find the new show, John. I think we've jumped the shark now with Cobra Kai. I don't think anybody.
But there's so many shows just can't get 1 or 2 seasons. Do you know what I mean? I'd go for the Mighty Ducks reboot. It was fantastic.
I just rewatched the Big Lebowski over and over. So.
Okay.
Nice.
Malcolm, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it, Malcolm.
If anybody who's a bit investy is listening, then get in touch.
Definitely give Malcolm a shout.
Yep, and hopefully we'll be back on Google by the time this airs, because we did geo-blocking and now we're off Google, but I think it'll be fixed in the next couple of days.
Okay. Just look at that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I'll tell you how to sort that.
Thank you. All right, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.